Hello, Curious! Maleficent is one of the most popular villains in all of Disney's productions. She has magical powers, she lives in a castle that's inaccessible to humans, and her head is decorated with horns and her body is covered with a big black cape. And when she appears on the screen, she causes anxiety in the viewers. After all, it was she who put the terrible curse on the princess and contributed to her 100-year-long sleep. But was her character always a cruel witch? Who created her famous image, and how did she acquire all these negative qualities? And why is it that when we think of Maleficent, we automatically think of Angelina Jolie? Stay with us until the very end to get to know this amazing story, and also click on the subscription button now to turn on the notifications, and don't forget to leave a thumbs up. Let's get started. Well, it's actually not that easy to create an evil villain, one that will arouse reluctance and anxiety and that will be remembered forever by viewers. But this was a great success for Disney, and in the studio films, evil takes on a very different form. In The Little Mermaid, we could see Ursula, half woman, half octopus, whose unusual appearance has been based on the image of a drag queen. In the fairy tale Hercules, there was Hades, the god of the underworld with bumping hair and terrifying fangs, who easily became angry. Cruella de Vil, who appeared in 101 Dalmatians, and in The Lion King, we had Cruel Scar. Following the trail of negative characters, we must also mention Gaston from Beauty and the Beast, and also Cinderella's stepmother and stepsisters did not arouse positive emotions in us. We also can't forget about the evil queen from the animation Snow White, from which the story of creating villains by the Disney studio really began, and we will finally move on to the character of Maleficent, a proud and evil witch, known from the fairy tale about Sleeping Beauty in 1959. Her dark image is the work of animator Mark Davis. He gave up the standard witch appearance of an old woman with a pointed nose and bony fingers, but instead giving her the figure of an elegant and ominous appearance. There were horns on her head, of course, a black suit on her shoulders, with such characteristic purple collar, and her skin was green. But Maleficent was created in the image of a giant vampire bat, as the cartoonist himself confessed in one of the interviews. All of this was to create a sense of danger at the sight of her, and you can probably admit that this plan was 100% successful. The creators of the 2014 film version of Maleficent went a step further. Wings were added to the main character, pointed bones on the appearance of her face, and green and yellow lenses appeared in her eyes. And the result was so electrifying that the filmmakers had trouble casting the role of 3-year-old Princess Aurora, as most children burst into tears at the sight of Angelina Jolie in full makeup. The Hollywood star created an iconic character here, and it was one of the best Hollywood performances in her career, which attracted huge audiences to the cinemas. And the movie, which grossed over $750 million worldwide, which means that the initial budget was paid back 4 times higher. Brad Pitt's ex-wife was not only great for the role, but also made her obsessed with horned costumes thanks to her glamorous disguise. Anyways, the celebrity was not the first time a model for other things. You know, in one of our latest episodes, you can learn about a rather shocking case of the so-called Angelina zombie, who wanted to look like the actress, but ended up behind bars, and you will learn more details of this story by clicking on the link that appears on the screen. It is worth mentioning that while Disney Studio created the iconic Maleficent look, the idea for the character itself was born much earlier and not in the heads of cartoonists. In the 17th century, a gentleman named Giambattista Basile wrote a collection of fairy tales called the Pentameron, and one of them was with the beautiful sounding name of the Sun, Moon, and Talia. But don't let that fool you, as it's rather a gruesome story. Talia was the daughter of a wealthy nobleman. After birth, she was foretold that when she grows up, she will fall into an eternal sleep as a result of a prick of a poisoned linen fiber. And although her parents wanted to protect her from the bad fate, the girl in her teens actually cut her finger and fell limply to the ground. The despairing father ordered her to be placed in one of the chambers, and he left the land forever, together with his wife and the entire servant staff. She would lay in solitude for so many years until one day a prince was hunting in the surrounding woods, and he found an abandoned castle and a noblewoman's room, and to put it mildly, took advantage of the situation. Later, after he left that place, returning to his kingdom, and after 9 months, Talia, still sleeping, gave birth to twins named the Sun and Moon. One of the children, in search of the mother's milk, grabbed her finger and put it in her mouth, and thus drawing the poison out of it and bringing her back to life. After the king remembered his haunting adventure, sometime later he returned to Talia, and when he saw her alive with the twins, he promised the young mistress that he would take her to his castle. Although he was not in a hurry to do so because his wife was waiting for him there, who quickly guessed that something was wrong, and to find out where her husband was going, she bribed the faithful servant, and on the news of the beautiful girl living in the forest, she resorted to a trick. She sent a message to her with a message to come to the court, all in secret of course, from the king. And when Talia got there, she didn't get what she expected, and what awaited her? Oh yeah, the queen ordered her to be put on a stake and cook her, and then she'll take care of the children and prepare a stew for the unfaithful husband. However, at the last moment, he saved his mistress and offspring, and the queen is finally put on the stake. And it was she who became the prototype for our today's heroine. And in the beginning, therefore, she was deceived and betrayed by a woman who restored cruelty to take revenge. So the fairy tale Sun, Moon, and Talia inspired another writer, and it was exactly Charles Perrault, who happened to then base it on the first version of Sleeping Beauty. And there is no longer a wounded queen in it, but an evil fairy who curses the title character. And this idea was then used by the Brothers Grimm, and thanks to them, the most famous fairy tale about a Sleeping Beauty was created. Do you remember what exactly she was talking about? Well, if not, we'll remind you briefly. When the king's daughter is born, the king is delighted to organize a party, and they are invited by 12 wise fairies, who give the girl unique gifts such as beauty, wealth, and virtue. And the joyful atmosphere is interrupted, however, with the arrival of a 13th woman, and she did not receive an invitation because the plate for her was missing and the golden tableware. Angry and offended, she decides to pour her anger out onto the newborn child, and she curses them and announces that when the princess is 15, she will prick herself with a poison spindle and fall into a 100-year sleep. The broken king and queen, of course, do not want to allow such a tragedy in order to burn all the spindles in the country. But the bad magic did its job anyway, and the girl grows up at the age indicated by the 13th fairy, and on her birthday, she plays in the castle and reaches the top tower. And it's not by chance that she meets an angry old woman spinning linen there. And trying to do her job, she hurts her finger. And at this point, the prophecy comes true. The princess falls asleep and the whole court with her. The castle is covered with a barbed hedge and through which no one can break through. And of course, there were many daredevils attracted by the legend of Sleeping Beauty, but they all lost their lives among the thorns. And it was only after 100 years that the brave knight managed to break through it. And he found the princess, and delighted with her beauty, placed a kiss on her lips. The girl woke up, and along with the entire court, and soon there was a big wedding and everyone lived happily ever after. In this version of the fairy tale, there are no more drastic moments, no pile, and no feeding of children for dinner, but there is magic and positive endings. So no wonder that it was on the basis of that Disney decided to create an animated version of Sleeping Beauty in 1959, and it was the first time that an evil fairy was given the name Maleficent, which means nothing but harming others. And it has only negative qualities and is terrifying, as expressed by its dark image that we told you about earlier. So you may remember that in the 2014 film version of the story, a decision was made to depart from its dark stereotype, and Maleficent looks scary there, but ultimately turns out to be a person who is in heart, loving and caring, and what's more, she also becomes a strong woman and a role model. The creators of the acting version, Maleficent, cleverly referred to the fairy tale Sun, Moon, and Talia, which was the prototype for the written version of the Sleeping Beauty. And just as it is there, the queen was betrayed by her husband, so in the film Maleficent, she's hurt by her beloved Stefan, who wants to take the royal throne. She loses her wings and wants to take revenge and curses the newborn daughter, Princess Aurora. However, as she watches her grow up over the years, she begins to regret that she treated a vulnerable girl so badly, and she will love her like a child of her own. So she wants to lift the curse from her before it's too late, but unfortunately, it is no longer possible, and the princess falls asleep. But perversely, it turns out that it's Maleficent's kiss, and not the brave prince's, that causes her to awaken. On top of that, they joined forces to restore Maleficent's good name, and in this story, she wasn't the negative character, but Aurora's father was, and he continued to persecute Maleficent even though she had once been the object of his sights, and otherwise he was hungry for power and refrained from doing anything to win it. And fortunately, it was not him who ultimately triumphs, and Maleficent proves that she does not deserve to be called a cruel and evil witch. In this way, the film redefines the character. So curious, do you remember the production from 2014, Maleficent? Did you know that the Disney studio in a fairy tale made our today's heroine the quintessence of evil in order to restore her good name in the film? How did you like Angelina Jolie as Maleficent? As always, we shall see you guys in the comments below, and don't forget to leave a like and hit the subscription button. See you guys next time!